Hi everyone and welcome back. So in the previous video we talked a lot about the core components and the building blocks like controllers, services, DTOs and all. In this video we'll talk a little more about the DTOs and the validations we are doing with the class validator. So it's not always like you just do the id string, is int, id string, basic validations. You might have to do the validations for the nested object. Let's say we have the address also for the cat, okay, and that is like an optional property we have. Okay, so I will just copy this. And how we can do the nested payload validations by creating a new type altogether. So let's call it as the address of a cat. This is required true. Okay, and this is address, and it is a nested object, so we have to create an address type. And let's say this is not a single address. This can be an array of address of a single cat. Okay, in that case how you'll do it? It's not a string, but it's an optional. Whenever you are doing is optional, that means if you're not even providing this property in the payload, that is fine. If you are providing, then all these validations will apply. So we can say this is an array. Okay, we can again say this array min size. If you are specifying array, then you have to specify the at least minimum size of 1. Okay, now how do I validate this nested object? This is going to be an array of address. An address can be another type we have. Let's call it as export class address, and here we have few fields. Let's say city and state. This cat is very rich and it has its own address. Okay, now this is complaining. Okay, one class, we can disable this particular one by just saying okay, because we are adding multiple classes. Now is optional. Let's import all these things, add all missing imports. Now we are doing the nested payload validation, right? So how we do it? There is a method validate nested that is coming from class validator. And how we are going to validate? So there is a validate type we will get it from the class transformer, I think, and we will just specify what transformation we wanted to do. Okay, so here validate type, validate nested, we can import from class validator, and this type we will get from the transformer. Okay, so this class validator and class transformers works together. Here we are specifying validate type. So what type we are validating? Address type, right? So some additional custom logic we have to write. This is the address is the type, and here also you can specify the type so that when you see, okay, this is of type address array, something like this. This type is really helpful to expose things on the Swagger. And we already imported this. Why it is complaining? Type as validate type, and it's pointing to the address, and this is our address field, which is nothing but an address array. Okay, sorry for that. Yeah, now when I expose this, first of all, this property is optional in the create cat, but this will have a nested fields, nested properties in it, right? And this is how you can write a nested payload validation. Even if it is not an array, it's like simple address is a JSON object, then also it will do the same thing. You are actually validating the nested object, nested address object, then also it will be the same process. We will do the validate nested and validate type and the type of that address. And here, if it is single JSON object, you will be providing a schema like this. So Swagger will read it and will see, okay, this is of type address array. This is one thing. Now other you can create DTOs, like you can write the DTOs for even the request param, query parameter, for anything. Currently this we are writing for the body, that payload should have all these things. What if you are passing some ID and that must be of type UUID? So like export class get by ID param. Here what I'm saying is I just need a cat ID to get the cat from the APIs. Again, same thing. And then this is UUID. This we can import, and then it is of type ID of type string. Okay, so what does it mean is we have the ID property which we are passing in the params. Okay, and it should be of type UUID only. So if you are typing, adding some random string in the query param, it will not be valid. And how we plug in it with the controller, we can create a get by ID or something like that, another API method that will be get by ID. And here we will specify this ID and our input. Here in the list all, it will be param. So here we can specify a lot of things: request, response, body, param, right? And here I'm saying that my params are of type. What is the new type we have added? The same type we will get here in the controller. Get by param ID, and here we will say get by ID. You can import this definition, and in the params we can actually access the param.id, and we are already using the validation pipe here, so it will validate this params if we are passing the correct ID or not, right? So this is how we are passing it. Here you can write a method in your service, get by ID, pass this and return the response. Okay, so this is all about the DTOs, services, controllers, interceptors, middlewares, and all these things. So here I'm finishing the basic building blocks of nestjs. Now in the next video, let's talk about the integration with the postgres, mysql, or any database, because it's going to be the same. We are using typeorm as a ORM layer. Now you can patch in any kind of database. It's like you have to just write a database module which is already there in my existing code. I will just use it, and then we will talk more about the entities we are going to define for the database, the migration, how we are going to run.